right. Let's talk about Cat in the Rain. Right?
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very simple story, just about a couple, right? So we start with the relationship of the couple.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
As the story starts,
Mm-hmm.
there were only two Americans
Mm-hmm.
stopping at the hotel,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the couple.
Mm-hmm.
The hotel happens to be in Italy,
Mm-hmm.
one of the many countries Ernest Hemingway
Mm-hmm.
visited and loved.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and as you say, the story is called Cat in the Rain, and if you read the story,
Mm-hmm.
it's super simple,
Mm-hmm.
simple description,
Mm-hmm.
simple dialogue, and simple,
Mm-hmm.
just a very simple story about
Mm-hmm.
the wife
Mm-hmm.
who wants to get the cat who's hiding under a table in the
Mm-hmm.
rain.
Yeah.
What could be simpler?
Yeah.
A kindergarten
Mm-hmm.
student could understand.
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
there's other much deeper messages that
Mm-hmm.
Hemingway is giving us.
Mm-hmm.
So this happens in all his books. He has a
Mm-hmm.
very simple style,
Mm-hmm.
but this simplistic style is very deceptive
Mm-hmm.
because the messages are much more important. And as
Yeah.
you asked about the relationship between the two,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what do you think, Elaine, is their relationship?
Yeah, you see, George keeps reading, and the American wife wants to find the cat. She really needs something.
Yes.
Yeah. So they have different attitudes toward their marriage, or.
Yes. The first thing we notice, I mean, the woman wants to go out and get the cat.
Mm-hmm.
Also, George did actually offer at one point to help her, but he was reading, and most of his focus is on reading his book.
Yeah.
It's raining outside, so they're stuck inside. He wants to read his book. So the American wife goes downstairs to ask the hotel owner. And as she does so, they speak a little Italian. He stands very seriously, but he's like this very dignified figure.
Yeah.
And she likes everything about him.
Yeah.
Because he loves his job. He seems to like to help people, and she notices his face, his hands. And she's a lot older, but maybe in a way she may like this kind of rugged Italian-looking man.
Yeah, yeah.
And this may be a hint that she may not be fully happy or satisfied in her own marriage.
I agree.
Yes.
Yeah. If she is happy, then I don't think that she's running out to find something, and she will notice the old man, the owner of the hotel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's like this, as you say, running out to find something. It's just a cat in the rain. A cat can run back inside. If I know cats are pretty smart. If it's raining, they'll find somewhere to hide, and they're very independent. So as you say, this running outside, it's like almost like she wants to run away, not just from the room, but maybe from her husband, who's happy and satisfied with how things are. And she seems dissatisfied with everything.
No.
Yeah, dissatisfied with everything.
Yeah.
So I think there's other things mentioned in the story. What else is she dissatisfied with?
She doesn't like to look like a boy.
Exactly, her hairstyle.
Yeah.
Which this is in the early part of the 20th century, when for the first time, probably in thousands of years, women started cutting their hair short. in a kind of not completely like a boy, but like a bob style.
Yeah,
they would call a bob.
Yeah.
And, it's quite a cute style today, but at that time it was very rebellious. And she had this very shorn at the back of her neck, a bit like a boy. And the guy is quite happy. He says no. He actually does give her attention, looks at her and says he likes this style. Why change it? But she seems to be in constant need of change.
Yeah. So in this way, we can see, their relationship, I mean the couple's relationship is not so harmonic. So we can say we can see the detachment between the husband and the wife.
Yes,
right?
I think it's very strong, and in some of most of this is conversation, and you could say Hemingway, like Fitzgerald, are very, very good at creating conversations which say a lot. And as you've just mentioned, this part about her pulling her hair back, but she's not just, she's dissatisfied with everything, and she wants something more.
Right.
And as in this line, she says, "And I want to eat at a table with my own silver, and I want candles, and I want it to be spring, and I want to brush my hair out in front of a mirror, and I want a kitty, and I want some new clothes." Almost like a spoilt child.
Right. Yeah.
But speaking volumes of this age, post First World War in America, where America was beginning to be the richest country in the world. And probably we see more from Scott Fitzgerald's great stories, of this lavish, luxurious, kind of wasted, rich lifestyle of just partying. In Hemingway has a very different, viewpoint.
Yeah.
I mean, he's maybe making in this simple sentence, simple dialogue, making a comment. Maybe not just on women, but on the whole American dream of, becoming rich, successful and famous, becoming rich quick. It's the American dream, which from the beginning of when all the poor immigrants from Europe went to America.
Right. Yeah.
This is the whole basis of their psyche, you could say. And Hemingway is making perhaps quite disparaging comment on this dream.
So that's why the wife wants a cat.
Yes.
Cat is a kind of symbol.
Yes, of maybe independence.
Yeah.
Of freedom. But she wants all these other things as well, which are the very materialistic view. As Madonna, who sings the glories of material girl.
Yeah.
She's a material girl.
Yeah.
Now it may be, he may be, also making a critique on married women. What they want out of marriage, because women like men with money.
Yeah.
Men like women with beauty, whereas maybe the woman is looking for a secure, materialistic, founding in marriage.
Or maybe the American wife says something like this. She wants to get the attention of George.
Yes. I think perhaps she's doing anything and trying anything to get his attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not just she really likes to own something, but the only thing she cares about probably is her husband's attention and the real communication.
Yes, because
there's no part in the story. We don't see this, right?
Almost none at all. Although he does actually offer to help her look for the cat. He doesn't go out and help her, but he does say he will offer. Although she goes out herself, and the maid ends up helping her. But yes, that's also a valid point. Maybe it's her cry for attention.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Then speaking of the American dream and American materialism, do you want to say something about this part? I know this semester you are teaching American culture, right?
Yes,
so,
I am.
Yeah, you must know much about.
Well, this is what values that each society has. I mean, in some ways, obviously, Taiwan also has similar values as any country. People want success in their lives. We have to, in modern society, we all need money just to live. But, I mean, whereas Scott Fitzgerald sings out the glory of being rich, of living this beautiful, lavish champagne lifestyle. Hemingway has been to war. Hemingway's own life is actually, if you read the story of Hemingway's life, it's as interesting as any of his novels. His own life was one of travelling, as a ambulance driver, as a correspondent in Spain, trying to help the left-wing Spanish against the fascist Franco. His life in Paris, where he met Fitzgerald, amongst other great writers, and Picasso, Gertrude Stein, and he was a great buddy of James Joyce. But I think he's not Hemingway. I mean, if you look at where he spent most of the end of his life, the last 20 to 30 years of his life was in Cuba.
Yeah.
Cuba was becoming a communist country.
Yeah.
They were anti-American imperialism. He loved Cuba. He loved the Cubans, and I think his house, La Finca, the name of the house, where he had his own swimming pool, and when the first time he went there, before the very first time, there was it was all locked up, and there were just boys playing, and they were scared he would be angry with them. But he said no. He welcomed them in. He said, "Hey," and he was a big, strong guy, and he taught them to play baseball. And he set up a baseball, bought them, because they were playing with old bits of wood and broken, bits of things they made into a ball. And he actually bought them all the equipment and set up baseball teams for them. I mean, he loved the local people.
Really?
And they loved him, even today. I mean, I've been to his house, which the first thing I was impressed with was just the number of books, apparently about 10,000 books in that he'd read in his life. And this is, again, you want to be a great writer, there's no real secret. You have to be a great reader first.
Really?
And he would start his day by sharpening 7 pencils. But he would, the strange thing about Hemingway, he would stand typing. And in La Finca, on quite a high shelf, his typewriter is there where he stood. He was a big man, and he stood typing. That was his way of
writing.
His way of writing. His creative flow came from standing at the typewriter.
Okay. it must be a very special experience to you, to visit his house. And,
it is. I mean, it's beautiful. Cuba, Havana's got much more busy but Cuba doesn't have huge industry, like other countries. It's been had a terrible embargo enforced upon it. Yes, I mean, Cuba has been really suffocated by America. And this Hemingway, later in his life, suffered from this because he'd always fought for America, fought for, causes in his life. And he was just living in a house in Cuba, but because Cuba had become America's enemy, they declared it an enemy.
Yeah.
They'd even attacked Cuba with some planes, but were repelled. One of the few countries they couldn't dominate and Americanize. And even at the end of his life, some people said Hemingway went crazy. But actually, it was manufactured by the FBI, who were spying on him.
Really?
Yeah, because they thought he may be, because he loved Cuba, he may be anti-American.
Yeah.
Although he was never anti-American. He just loved living there. And I think when he left Cuba, he was told that he would be, he was thought of as a traitor, and he left in the last few months of his life, went back to live in America, and then, as you know, he committed suicide.
Right.
I think maybe he could have lasted longer in Cuba. That's my belief.
But his father also committed suicide.
Well, actually, you're right. It's in the family, not just his father, his brother, his sister, his granddaughter, the beautiful model. I think, was it Margot Hemingway? She committed suicide. I mean, it's in the family, you're right.
Yeah, so
it's
it's weird.
Yes, maybe in the genes.
Okay. All right. So Hemingway is called, the lost generation. Do you want to talk about this part?
Yes, well, it was later called the Lost Generation. I forget who first coined the phrase.
Gertrude Stein.
Or maybe Gertrude Stein. But in a way, because they were a lot of immigrants to Paris at the time. I mean, Gertrude Stein was American, Fitzgerald was American, Hemingway, and Mailer, Norman Mailer was also there. Then there were the English and the Irish, as we've mentioned, a lot of writers, even Picasso, he was Spanish. Van Gogh a bit earlier, he would have died earlier, but all these people came to Paris. Matisse was actually French, but they were all living there, so there was this, in a way it was this, they lost their past, but in a way this is how they could evaluate their past. Fitzgerald went to Paris to write The Great Gatsby. Hemingway could write in Paris or about, his life in the wars. So in a way you distance yourself from your home, and then you get a clearer look at what your home really is all about.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So they were, as you say, Gertrude Stein, coined this phrase, and in a way you could say they were lost, but in a way they were finding themselves.
Yeah. Stay away from home, the people can be objective.
Yes. I mean, all the great writers, like this is, Joyce had said this, Nietzsche, great philosopher, left and travelled, even though he was very sick, travelled around Europe. And they all said this is the only way to become truly great in your art is to leave, everything, your home life, maybe what you love, and then you can see world from a different perspective. And your own life, maybe from a more objective viewpoint.
We can see Hemingway and Fitzgerald, their writing style or their life is so different. Their writing style is so different. How come they can become good friends?
I'm not sure they really were good friends. Hemingway, they were drinking partners. Hemingway, there were a lot of stories how Hemingway actually lied later and made up stories to put down Fitzgerald, and actually almost did destroy Fitzgerald. I mean, yeah, I mean he would make up things about. There was one thing about money that later people were joking about, and he turned it around to make it that it was Fitzgerald had said that he loved money, but it wasn't. And I think there was this great, actually more, not really a friendship, more a rivalry between them. They never really, I don't think, liked each other. But they shared the love of writing and drink. And I think really Hemingway liked James Joyce much more. James Joyce also drank himself to death, but James Joyce was wasn't really a rival because he was, Irish. And he wasn't trying to write the great American novel, which I think both Fitzgerald and Hemingway was their aim. Who was going to write this great American novel? It may have been written before. Mark Twain was perhaps as good or great, or maybe greater than either of them, and he had written Huckleberry Finn. And others since. I mean, another contemporary was Steinbeck, who wrote about his Grapes of Wrath and East of Eden, wrote about the Great Depression and how the poor people suffered. And I think he was probably, showed and was more popular at the time because he showed how people were really living.
Okay.
I think, in the end, I mean, Hemingway's living in Cuba, separated from America and all Americans, bar, I mean, I think maybe his third or fourth wife he met there, I forget, but to him, I don't think marriage was really, was very important to him.
No.
It was, he really was, he loved fishing and, bullfighting, as
masculine sports.
Masculine and macho sports. And he was injured many times. He suffered many terrible illnesses, but he survived. And I think maybe the love of Cuba and simple lifestyle was, was his great Nobel Prize winning story.
The Old Man and the Sea.
Yes.
It's impressive and quite touching.
Yeah, very touching, simple story again, but very meaningful, I think, to anyone of any age. And I think, I mean, also from if you look at, the number of books he read, one of the things he said, there is no friend as loyal as a book. I mean, he didn't really have any, maybe he had a few close friends, but never stayed together with them for long, like his wives. And although Fitzgerald worshipped Zelda, and all his protagonists were really Zelda with a different name. Hemingway never really, I think, worshipped womankind. He worshipped, nature, yes, fishing, bullfighting, being, a strong man, as he was brought up to be. But I think underneath it, he was actually a very sensitive person. And he, like all these other great writers, he he gave a lot for his craft. I mean, he said there is nothing to writing. All you do is sit down at a typewriter and bleed. And I think they all did bleed for their art.
Yeah. That's quite, kind of good ending.
I think so, yes, Elaine.
Okay,
okay,
right.
great.
Yeah.